Good morning, everyone. So I'm YY. I'm your host today, and today we have Miss Gita. Hi, Miss Gita.
Hi, YY. Hi, everyone.
Hi. So today our talk is basically about protect your brands abroad at half the price. Okay. So I will do a brief introduction about Miss Gita. Okay. So she is an IT expert, and she's from CAS International Sdn Berhad. Is it? I hope I didn't pronounce it wrongly. So
No,
they have
correct.
six officers in the Asian, is it?
6 officers in ASEAN countries, yes.
Okay.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for spending your Wednesday morning with us today. So today I will be talking about how do you protect your brands abroad at half the price. And half the price sounds like an amazing deal. And so let's explore how does this actually happen? How does this attractive deal come about? So before I go into that, YY did explain a bit about CAS and give an introduction, and thank you so much for that, YY. CAS has been around for 21 years. We were established in 1999, and we've grown not just to assist people with intellectual property management and protection in Malaysia, but we've also grown to other ASEAN countries to assist clients, both local, so Malaysian businesses and foreign businesses, to help them to protect their intellectual property rights in other countries as well. We are now in Malaysia, Singapore, Indonesia, Myanmar, and recently opened in Thailand and Vietnam as well. Our team force is 45 of us, and we have a very specialized team in terms of having a strong patent team with executives who have got degrees in specific domains. So we've got electrical engineers, mechanical engineers, biochemists, ICT grads, and then you've got trademark lawyers who handle trademark, copyright, and so on. So that's a bit about CAS, so that you know a bit about the company that's presenting. And on myself, I have been with CAS for 16 years, and I run the trademark department. And a lot of what we do, apart from helping clients protect what they create, basically anything that they create can be protected and should be protected so that they have their exclusive rights. We also do a lot of talks like this. We do a lot of human resource planning and training so that companies know how to capitalize on their intellectual property assets. Thank you so much for joining us today. And that's going to bring me to what am I talking about? How is it that you can go abroad and yet do it for half the price? How is that? Because everyone assumes that protecting your intellectual property rights, number one, it's expensive. Number two, it's troublesome and cumbersome. So, what actually we're talking about today is something that's called Madrid Protocol. It's a treaty that Malaysia entered into, and I'm starting off with explaining about why is this super important in terms of Malaysia itself. Why is it so important for Malaysia's economy that Malaysia entered into this treaty? So, let's look at what makes a country economically successful. There's three things: ease of doing business, a robust economy, and strong and transparent legal system. So there's three things that makes a country economically successful. And think about it. Think of Singapore. Don't you find all of these three in Singapore? They are known to be one of the most easiest country to actually establish a business and conduct a business. They have a robust economy and they have a very, very strong, transparent, and legal system. So these are the three things that are super important. And this is a report from World Bank Group that actually talks about doing business and what is measured in doing business. So you can see starting a business, the aspects they look at is starting a business, you look at the labor market regulation, dealing with construction permits, then you look at getting a location, getting electricity in the location, registering the property, getting credit, accessing to finance, and dealing with day-to-day operations and operating in a secure business environment. Why is this important? So now all of you are tuning in, and there's definitely a reason why you're tuning in. You would not be tuning in if just Malaysia is your market, if you're just looking at a local market. You are tuning in today to this webinar because you're looking abroad, you're looking outside of Malaysia. And of course, it becomes important regardless, or even more so because of what we're facing right now in terms of the crisis and the pandemic. Everyone is online. It's a flattened market space. What you are selling now in Malaysia, everyone can look at it because you have taken your business online. If you're not already online, you're definitely online now or looking to be online. So can you see how it's extremely important to be looking global and looking outside our shores? So this chart, this diagram shows you many things that are taken into account before a business actually does business abroad. And economic growth comes from increasing quantity and quality of land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurship. So these are where all countries look at how do I attract foreign direct investment. I have to look at land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurship. Is it easy to acquire land? Is it easy to acquire labor? Is it easy to get capital, to get investors? And how is the entrepreneurship landscape? Michael Porter's pastel analysis talks about if you're starting a business in a foreign country, these are the elements that's looked into. These are the 5 elements. Political, you look at whether is the politics stable, is there a political regime that's trusted, how is the economy, you look at the GDP and income of the nation, social aspects, legal aspects, and ecological aspects. So legal aspects is where we are talking about today because intellectual property law falls in terms of legal. How is the law on investment? What's the entrepreneurship laws around? What is the intellectual property law? Is it secure? Is it easy to enforce your rights? So that's where legal is also very important when you're starting a business in a foreign country. And what gets measured gets done. So in the Doing Business report, let's look at that. The World Bank report, which has been delivered for the past 15 years, and it actually assesses administrative and regulatory processes that may hinder or support businesses from growth. So having analyzed all these administrative and regulatory processes, the World Bank report looked at all of these aspects, basically all the regulations involved in each of these aspects here, looking at what is the labor laws, what is the laws to incorporate a company, shareholdership, can foreign shareholders be an owner, construction permits, and so on. So basically looking at regulation and legal law around all these areas. So the ranking here, the ease of doing business ranking, shows that Malaysia, if every one of you are looking at this, do type in the chat box, where is Malaysia? Let's do a quick one. Do you spot it? And you can see it's all the way there. Ironically, Lithuania is doing better than Malaysia, and that's a shock. But we are at least in the top 20. Malaysia is number 15. Can you see? And I talked about Singapore early on, and even before I talked about Singapore, I am certain those who are tuning in would have thought about Singapore when you think of that phrase, ease of doing business. Many entrepreneurs find it extremely easy to incorporate a company in Singapore. Some of you who are tuning in might already have incorporated a company in Singapore. So you can see how the top countries are actually economically strong as well. And it's very much related to entrepreneurship in the country. So why is this important? Why am I talking about ease of doing business in a country and then talking about how do you get half price going abroad? So it's very much correlated. We now come to Madrid Protocol. So Madrid Protocol is a treaty that Malaysia signed on 27th of December. It was signed earlier, but it was enforced on 27th of December last year. And it's called Madrid Protocol. So a bit of data on Madrid Protocol before I explain more on the treaty itself and how it affects Malaysians. In 2018, more than half of all Madrid applications originated from EU. So what this shows is when I explain the system, you will know that a lot of European Union companies incorporated in EU, were utilizing this system for them to go abroad. Can you see? So we are now able to then use the same system for our own local companies. Almost a quarter, so 24.5% of the Madrid Protocol applications came from Asia, and compared with just 10.5 a decade ago that came from Asia. Meaning in 2018, there was 24.5, quarter of the applicants came from Asia. But a decade ago, you're looking at 2008, only 10.5 came from Asia. So more and more Asian companies are utilizing what I am going to present to you. And that's why it's also extremely important for you to also know about Madrid Protocol. There are more stats. So among the top 20 origins of Madrid Protocol applicants, we have Japan at 22.8%, South Korea at 26.2%, Singapore at 29%. Singaporeans are very active in Madrid Protocol. Singapore is also known to be a country that values the fact that, yes, Singapore is robust, it's got very strong economy, but Singapore only has 6 million population. I think 6 to 8 at this point. But you're looking at, is that going to be my pool? Is that going to be my market? No, it's too small. It's too small when you're growing a company. It's too small when you have big dreams. So that's why you can see Singapore by 29%. It also reflects how many companies in that country are actually outward thinking. And Singapore entered the Madrid Protocol in the year 2000. Malaysia entered in the year 2019. We entered 2 decades after Singapore entered. How interesting and scary is that? So, impact on local businesses. Why is it so important? Why is it that we encourage a lot of local businesses when you're going abroad to look at using the Madrid Protocol? It is because it encourages foreign interest in foreign direct investment. Foreign brand owners will find it easy to protect their mark. So a lot of foreign brands are then now also looking to secure their brand in Malaysia through the Madrid Protocol system. Companies park their mark first before venturing into the country. So what this means, and local businesses also can do this, is to protect the mark the moment you have intention to enter into that country. Before entering into that country, you can enter the country very easily through the Madrid Protocol system. And you avoid hijacks. Sometimes in some countries, they have a rule where the first person to file their trademark in their country has better rights than the first person that uses the mark in their country. That system and that principle is extremely unfair to companies that actually have effort in using the mark, compared to the company that runs to the IP office, to the intellectual office, and files a trademark. How is that fair that that person who does not use the mark has rights over a company that uses the trademark? But that system, it does exist. First to file versus first to use. Countries like Indonesia, China, Vietnam, they practice the first to file and better rights than first to use. So this Madrid Protocol also allows for businesses to protect their marks in an early stage to avoid hijacking. Trying to get your mark back from someone who hijacks the mark is extremely difficult and very costly at times. We are facing similar situations and helping clients out in some cases in Indonesia, trying to get back marks that were registered on bad faith, just because they went and filed it first, even though our client had used the mark in Indonesia first. So with Malaysian companies that are tuning in, Madrid Protocol becomes very important because look at our exports. Our exports from January to October 2019, and this data was taken from Martrade, is 819.13 billion exports. And the breakdown is where are we exporting to? We're exporting a lot to Singapore and China and the US. So those top 3 countries are where Malaysians are exporting to. Then let's look at what are we exporting? A chunk of it, a large portion, 84.5% are manufactured goods. That is what Malaysians are exporting, followed by mining goods and agricultural goods. So impact on local businesses. Why is Madrid Protocol important and how does it impact? It's lower cost restrictions. We allow the businesses can now think global from the start of the journey because it is made affordable. We give them more funds to use elsewhere in the business. On basically now that they can save when they are going abroad, they can actually use the funds elsewhere on the business, on promoting the brand, and so on. And it encourages innovation and more product brands as well. See, the thing about trademarks is one trademark in many countries can be costly. So many companies think twice about actually using a few brands on their business. And this saving costs in terms of taking it abroad allows them to then do more innovation and create more products because there are funds available for that. And going and protecting their brand abroad is the entire cost is reduced. So it even makes it possible for them to take this angle and this strategy in their business. Walt Disney said, first think, second dream, third believe, and finally dare. This is so important in terms of any of your businesses. It is where what takes us forward. It's what makes you grow, to develop your team. It makes you to develop your business plans. It makes you to strategize on what you need to do. Not just Malaysia. So Malaysia is your starting ground. Malaysia is your playing field. Fine tuning your business, your service, or your product, and then going abroad. So intellectual property rights are increasingly important because these are intangible assets that the value is there regardless of what happens to your tangible assets. You know, attendees, especially Malaysians, I am aware there are attendees from other countries as well. Recently in Malaysia, there was a news that went viral. A brand called Esprit, and they have many outlets in Malaysia. They sell clothing for men and female, for males and female. And recently there was news going around that, oh, they're closing all the shops and there's a clearance sale. And it is drastic. And I guess in times like this, businesses do need to make the decision: do they actually reduce cost and maybe take a step back to wait for economy to recover and then maybe enter the market? Maybe they're going online. So there might be a few strategies involved in why are they closing the brick and mortar shops. Might be that they're taking everything online. But let's say it's not online and they're closing it. Can you see how that those are tangible assets? They might have owned that building. S3 might be a standalone building. They might have tenancy, so they might be renting that land. I mean that outlets. They will have inventory. All of those are tangible assets, and that goes into your profit and loss account in your balance sheet. But the fact that they're closing that down actually does not impact the value of the business in the long run, in the long term. In the long term, think about it. So let's take the brand Asprey. Trademarks last for 10 years. And at every 10 years, you renew the brand. That's why McDonald's, KFC, all these big brands still own their trademark. It does not expire. It does not ever become the public domain. I and you, we can't use those brands. It belongs to an entity. So Esprit, let's go back to Esprit. Esprit being a brand, they will have trademark rights. And it does not matter that they're closing down these 20 outlets. Can they in 2 years open their outlets again? Yes, because they still own their brand. If they have sold it off, it's a whole other game, it's a whole other scenario. But if they have not sold it off, and that's the plan, okay, let's hang on to it because the value is in the brand. The value is in the trademark that we recognize, that we trust, that we rely on. Of course, in the 2 years, it's very important that the brand owner also continuously educates and reminds us, the lay people, that the brand still exists and is still active. That needs to be done. That's another webinar altogether on branding, on advertising, on keeping your customers engaged. But what I'm referring to here is how important your intangible assets are, because even if your tangible assets are down, it's closed down, your factory is closed down, you can't operate because of the lockdown, the shutdown, you still have your intangible assets to protect, to keep, and to always think about what's my long-term strategy. So that's trademarks. Other intangible assets, which we will not be touching on today, are patents, utility models, know-how, trade secrets, copyright, industrial design. Those are other types of intangible assets as well. So a bit of difference for those who haven't joined us in other webinars is brands and trademarks are used very often, and it might confuse you when you talk about brands or when you talk about trademarks. So brands represent the reputation and business of a company. So basically, the feeling that one gets when they experience the service or the product from that company. That's why when you talk about branding, it's not just the word, the logo of the brand. You're talking about a lot of aspects in the business. You are talking about the customer service level, what uniforms they use, what experience you have when you call that customer service and the feedback that you get, or when you buy that product online. How do they respond to that product online? How do they actually treat you? How is the service? So branding is more than just the look and visual look of that brand. That's what branding is. Coming to trademarks, trademark represents the look of the brand. What logo are they using? What tagline are they using? Is the company using? What representation? It might be more than just the word mark and the logo or the design, the abstract design, because these days there are many other types of trademarks, basically non-traditional trademarks, and these are trademarks that basically are things that people look at or listen to, and then makes them think of the source of origin of the company. So you could be, for example, let's say pink color gloves. Let's say a glove manufacturing company is specialized in pink colored gloves, and they're known for pink colored gloves. So the color pink can be registered as a trademark, and that color pink can only be used by this glove manufacturing company, and no other glove manufacturing company can use that color pink. Sound, for instance, when I talk about production company and the sound of a lion roaring, what do you think of? You think of MGM. So these are type of marks that are non-traditional. It's not just words and logos, but it's actually other aspects that it makes you think of the company that's producing that movies, company that's producing the products and services. So that's non-traditional trademarks. But what I'm trying to get to is anything that you look at, you use your senses, you hear and you see or you feel for design, and you think of the company that's producing it. That is a trademark of the company. So what do these trademarks all have in common? You can type in the chat box. So please use the chat box. Type what do you feel these trademarks have in common? What do you think Starbucks and McDonald's have in common? What do you think Alibaba and Starbucks have in common? I don't know whether you typed this, but it's high chances that you did not actually relate this. But this is where I'm coming from. All these businesses started locally. All of them started their business locally and then expanded within the country and then took their brands abroad. That's what all of these companies had in common. They did not start abroad immediately. It was getting strong locally first and then getting outside and protecting your brands outside. The importance of brands and trademarks is that there's public awareness and reputation, quality, and image in your branding, and you differentiate among your competitors. You stand out on how unique you are among your competitors. So one is, of course, people know you, people recognize you, people want you, and that's the whole trust factor. Then there is a whole want and trust, but among the great ocean, you actually stand out. So through your trademarks that you choose, you stand out as well. Okay, so now coming to how do you actually benefit from the Madrid Protocol? Previously, before we actually entered into the Madrid Protocol, these were the routes that we had without the international route. We had the national route and the regional route. The national route means that we file the trademark individually in each country. Let me share with you the national route. Hang on. Okay, I've gone to this slide. Yeah, the reason is this is the national route. The national route means if I want to file in 5 countries, or here what we have, if I want to file in 4 countries, I am exporting my product to Singapore, to Vietnam, to Thailand, and to China. What this means is that we have to file directly in Singapore, in Vietnam, in Thailand, and China. Trademarks are territorial, and that means that it if you are expanding your business to another country and want to protect your rights in that country, we have to file your brand in that country specifically. So this was the previous way. We have, if we are not directly representing, we don't have a direct office in that country. We have to engage a local attorney there to file the trademarks there. So that's what it used to be. Going back to regional application, what a regional application is there are a few regions. Uh, the two that comes to mind is European Union and a region in Africa that allows one application, one trademark application that protects your rights in many countries. European Union is one of those regions. So we can file what we call a community trademark, and you have protection in the 27 European Union countries. Sadly, now with the Brexit, UK is not in that country, in the European Union, so we have to then protect separately in the UK as well. Uh, but those who have already protected their brands in Europe will have automatic protection in the UK, and that automatic protection is only until end of this year. So if you are looking to protect in Europe and the UK, do get in touch with us, because a protection that's filed before the end of this year and is registered before the end of this year will have automatic protection in the UK. So just keep that in mind. But yeah, so there are some regional applications. Europe, I had mentioned that, and then there's regional application in Africa as well, where one application gives protection in many countries. So the next one I want to talk about is international route.
Hi Gita, hi.
Hi, hi, YY.
Because your slide is keep blinking, so I'm scared that the audience will have a little bit dizzy. So I have uploaded the slides to webinar. So maybe you can turn off your screen share and you come back to webinar so we can use the PPT from here. I will guide you.
Can, no problem. Okay, wait, hang on.
Okay. Are you back here?
I'm trying
Okay, I'm
to.
so sorry for the interruption,
No, it's
guys.
okay. It's
So
okay.
sorry.
No worries. Uh, okay, so can you
Yes.
screen share on your end?
Do you see the slides below 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 columns below the chat? There's a slides. Do you see that?
Wait, I do see it, but it's someone else's slide.
Wait. I start the slides. That is this your slides? This is your
Yes,
slides, right?
yes, that's right.
So you can see there's a next and previous one, right? You can control it through that.
Okay, okay,
So
thanks.
now you can be in the webinar jam already. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, that's great. Wait,
Okay.
now, does anyone want me to repeat anything? Did you miss anything?
No. Yeah. There's no chat about that, so I think you can continue. Yeah.
Okay. Uh, all right. Sorry for that. Sorry for the technical problem, everyone. All right. So back to this. So back to the international route, and that's why you're all here. Let's look at the international route. It is called Madrid Protocol, and I had mentioned before, it was enforced in 27th of December last year. The bill was passed on 2nd of July 2019. Malaysia was pressured to enter into it because apart from Malaysia and Myanmar, all other countries had already become a member of the Madrid Protocol. And that would be reflected quite poorly in terms of Malaysia being harmonized with the rest of the world, especially developed countries. So, well, good news is we are in the Madrid Protocol now, and applications have started. Malaysia has 20 applications already. And what is it? So the Madrid Protocol system is a centralized filing system. Right now, there's 106 member states with a total of 122 countries have taken part. And it's extremely user-friendly, cost-effective, and expeditious. And I'll go into, later on, I'll talk about that a bit more. And it was first adopted on 27th of June 1989. That's when it was first introduced. A bit of background history. Madrid Protocol was introduced to assist a lot of big brand owners, and we're talking about the Coca-Colas, we're talking about the Starbucks and McDonald's and big brands that expand very fast. The thing about America is, or American brands is, once they go to all the states and they fine-tune their system, They look at the world being their oyster. Same with European countries. They look at the world being their oyster. So these companies, when they look at the world being their oyster, everywhere is an opportunity, they then pressure international organizations. So for here, the World Intellectual Property Organization. They pressure such organizations to make it easier. You know, the ease of doing business I mentioned at the start of this presentation. They make it easier for them to do business elsewhere. And that's also related to intellectual property rights. How do I protect in many countries in an easy way, in a cost-effective way, in a less hassle and less cumbersome manner? So that's how Madrid Protocol came about. How does it work? So this is a chart that shows you how it works. The first part where it says trademark application in country of origin, that is where the trademark must be filed first. Okay, let's take a trademark. Let's take CAS, for example. Okay, CAS. The trademark CAS originated in Malaysia. So we do a filing in Malaysia first. But we are in 5 other countries in addition to Malaysia. How do we then protect our brand in other countries through the Madrid Protocol system? We then, in Malaysia, file a Madrid Protocol application. After filing your Malaysian application, you file a Madrid Protocol application. And you file it in the Malaysian Intellectual Property Office. Malaysian Intellectual Property Office will then send this application to Geneva, where the International Bureau of the World Intellectual Property Organization is based. They then will send the application to other member states, to other countries, where these countries, okay, so now let's take CAS again. So CAS is in 5 other countries. So we're in Vietnam, Thailand, Singapore, Indonesia, and all of these are also, apart from Myanmar, all of these are Madrid Protocol countries. So the documents will be sent to the Intellectual Property Office of all of these intellectual property officers. And then the intellectual property officers of Singapore, of Indonesia, of Thailand will process this application. Their examiners will examine this application. And there's various reasons why it has to go through the examination process of the country. This is why the World Intellectual Property Organization is not able to actually examine, do a one examination and then say that, oh, it's granted in all these countries that you have selected. The reason is the Intellectual Property Office of each country, number one, has different set of trademarks registered in their country. Their trademark database will have different prior marks. And these prior marks might be identical. There might be another CAS. If there is another CAS in the same industry, that will stop our CAS application, our CAS trademark application. So you can see how an examination in each country is needed. So examination will be done. And then if there's any refusals, the refusals will be issued, but they will go through the World Intellectual Property Organization, meaning the IP office in Singapore will inform the World Intellectual Property Organization. And the World Intellectual Property Organization will then inform the brand owner. And of course, if there's an IP lawyer assisting you with this, the IP lawyer will be informed, and the IP lawyer will then be liaising with you in terms of what's the next step. So this is how Madrid Protocol application is treated. And the timeline is below, but we don't need to go to that. So let's look at some statistics. Top 20 filing origins in 2018. US and Germany and China are very actively using the Madrid Protocol application. France and Switzerland as well. Switzerland will be a lot of drugs. There'll be a lot of pharma companies using the Madrid Protocol system. UK, Italy, and Japan. You can see these again are very countries that are very strong in terms of outward businesses, looking at exporting products or services. That's where Madrid Protocol becomes very important. Top 20 designated. So the earlier one, filing origins, meaning the companies which are where they're filing from. So basically, where do they originate from? Where's the principal? Then what markets are they looking at? So you then can see also in terms of the economy of a country. These are foreign direct investment. Where are they filing? They're filing mostly in EU. They're filing mostly in China, in the US, in Japan, in Russia. If you would like the slides, just let us know, or let YY know. We can share with you these statistics. International applications by region, that shows 2008 to 2018. This is what we're talking about earlier, that more and more Asian companies are filing the Madrid Protocol application. That's very encouraging. It also shows that a lot of businesses are thriving in Asia. As of November 2019, Madrid system has recorded 1.5 million international registration. So that is how many trademarks have been filed through the system. Now, we need to talk about the good and the ugly, and what is it that's important for business owners to know about. There are risks. It is good that it's very much more reasonable in terms of cost when you are filing in many countries. It's good in terms of it's also very convenient to the way the system is structured, but there are disadvantages as well. And then you can consider on whether the system suits you. The advantages are that it is definitely a one-stop, easy maintenance and management of portfolio. And I'll explain again a bit more on that because I'll talk more on advantages. It's cost-effective. There's fixed examination timeline. There's subsequent designation of more countries that are allowed. Simple and user-friendly procedures. Okay, let me get into this. First, simple and user-friendly procedures. What do we mean? Earlier we talked about it, about how when you do a national route, you actually have to engage an IP lawyers in that specific country. And otherwise, so basically if you hire an IP lawyer and you go directly into each country, you have more time. You're liaising to 4 different lawyers, and there's additional costs because they're also filing this through an attorney. Then you have fees to be paid separately to the separate lawyers. So when we deal with clients, of course, we are the one-stop point and we'll be dealing with the 4 attorneys. But there are also clients who have an in-house IP team. And when they have an in-house IP team, they are then dealing with 4 different companies, 4 different lawyers, 4 different deadlines, 4 different ways of reporting to you. So this non-standardized manner delays your own effort and work in your department, in your legal department. That's why it can be extremely cumbersome. Some countries require translation to be provided as well. All of this then gives extra work and delays the application process. So now, within Madrid Protocol system, how I mentioned earlier, you file it in MIPO, in the Malaysian IP office, and they will then send the documents to the World Intellectual Property Office. There is one application that is forwarded. See, you're not then liaising with 4 different parties, 4 different lawyers, or 4 different intellectual property officers at this point. Just to get your application filed, you are making a one-stop filing. This saves a lot of time. It's one fee. Because of that one fee, it's also cost-effective. And there's one application to be made, and there's one maintenance system. What that means is when you have a change of name, if you've sold your company and there is an assignment from company A to company B, you are not filing in 4 different countries. You're actually making the changes once. Then all applications are in one language, and there's standardized filing dates and renewal dates. So can you see how it's just a system that simplifies the entire process of foreign filing? It's a one-stop system. So we talk about easy maintenance and management of portfolio. So these, during a life of a trademark, or life of a company for that matter, in a company, many things happen. Companies can merge, and when the companies merge, what then happens to the assets? What then happens to the trademarks? Companies can be sold. That's when there's a change of rights. The trademark is transferred from company A to company B. There can be a change of name. Maybe there's a rebranding and there's a reason there's a change of name. ABC Sendirian Berhad. Maybe it's changed to DEF Sendirian Berhad. We do not know why there's a change of name, but you're aware in business that happens. And there could be a change of address. The registered address could change. Or there could be changes in goods, in the goods and services related to your brand. These are various things that could happen throughout the life of a company and the life of the trademark. And this is called portfolio maintenance, including renewal. So trademarks are renewed every 10 years. So this is how your trademark in many countries, you need to maintain them. And if you already have a presence in many countries, I hope you are maintaining them in this manner, making sure everything's updated and your deadlines are captured. But what what Madrid Protocol does is it gives you a system of changes need to be done. It's done one time at one location, which is with the World Intellectual Property Office. With renewal that needs to be done, it's done one time, again with the World Intellectual Property Office. That's how it's extremely easy. And in the long term, if you're filing and you're looking at getting your trademark rights in many countries, it's extremely useful. Third is cost effective, and that's where the title of our presentation today came about. How do you protect abroad at half the price? Because there's only one application fee in the trademark, and it's filed in one language, and there's no additional translation fees, and local attorney fees are eliminated, that itself gives you a lower cost. There is a cost reduction in your Madrid Protocol application. So let's look at the comparison that we did. And this is just a rough estimate because these fees are also dependent on what is the currency rate that we are dealing with in terms of the World Intellectual Property, a payment to the World Intellectual Property Organization. When we file a Madrid Protocol application, we have to pay the World Intellectual Property in Swiss francs. And when we designate countries, again, there's a specific fee that goes into this designating each country. There is a fee, a government fee to be paid. And the reason there is a government fee to be paid is, do you remember earlier when I was talking about how the trademarks are examined in the national offices of each country? Well, the national offices have to employ examiners, and this examination is not free. So that is what the official fees are for. The official fees are for examination of these trademarks in that national office. So let's look at this, yeah? So if we are filing in Singapore, US, EU, Australia, Canada, China, and Japan, you have to pay attorney fees and official fees. Official fees being government fees. So these are the fees that you're looking at if you're filing in 5 countries directly. 45,000 is an estimate. And if you file through the Madrid Protocol, your base application, and then an international application with, if you can see number 3, there's attorney fees, WIPO fees, and then there's 5 designations. The designation fees are the fees I mentioned earlier, the examination fees, the official fees. So inclusive of all of that, you have 20,700. So you can see how filing your brand abroad through the Madrid Protocol system, it's actually cost saving. It is extremely cost saving. But where you have 1 or 2 countries, as a business owner, you would know what is your dream. You would know where you want to be. It might be that you're only looking at ASEAN market and you're only looking at 2 markets. Might be Indonesia. If you're selling FMCG products, you want to focus on Indonesia and you want to focus on maybe Philippines or Vietnam. Vietnam is another emerging country in the ASEAN region. So if you're looking at only 2 countries, this system might not be cost saving for you. You come to us and you say, Cass, okay, can you compute? You say it's 50% the price. Of course, let me file it through the Madrid Protocol system. No, it's not going to be 50% cheaper because you're filing only in 2 countries. The system is structured as such that it becomes cost effective if you're looking at 4 or more countries. That is when there is cost saving. So it's very important to actually get expert advice and computation before you actually make a decision. And always tie in your IP strategy with your business strategy. You know your dream, you know where you want to take your products and services. So remember, keep that in mind. And that's when your IP strategy will be definitely work towards your business strategy. Next, the other advantages is fixed examination timeline. A lot of countries are restrained in terms of when they enter Madrid Protocol, they must examine the marks and publish the trademarks within 18 months. So in many countries that have a very slow system of examining trademarks, these countries had to suddenly speed up their examination process because when you enter a Madrid Protocol, it is a requirement that trademarks must be examined and published within 18 months. So you can see how this speeds up an application. And that is probably why Malaysia took time in terms of entering the Madrid Protocol system. The Intellectual Property Office has to be ready to speed up their processes. They have to be ready to accept applications that are also previously not accepted. For example, I talked about non-traditional trademarks, about listening to the MGM raw, about color trademarks. Previously, they were not accepted. But if you are entering into the Madrid Protocol system, you also need to recognize that there are non-traditional trademarks and your IP office needs to accept them. So you have now, because we have to abide by their rules, the World Intellectual Property rules, when you enter Madrid Protocol, we now have a faster examination process. So trademarks move faster. So this is what it is. So it's objected in the designated country. The first refusal must be issued within 12 to 18 months. That's a condition. And if there is no refusal, there's no provisional refusal or an objection, the application will proceed to grant. So can you see how the pressure is there on the IP office to move it and do its examination? Otherwise, a lot of trademarks will be registered without being examined. Subsequent designation of more countries. So a lot of businesses sometimes, earlier I was saying, oh, you know your dream. Yeah, what are you looking at? Two countries? Are you looking more than two countries? I say that, but I know it's easier said than done. A lot of businesses also, sometimes you look at two countries and then you're successful in two countries and then you might want to expand into 3 other countries. So your dream might be small and then it might just suddenly explode when you see a lot of potential and a lot of demand for your products and services. This is where the Madrid Protocol comes handy. Yes, if you're filing in 2 countries, it might not be cost effective, but hey, you're also kind of giving yourself that opportunity. When I might expand to other countries, the system allows that factor to be considered. So the countries that you designate in the application stage is not final. You can add to that later on, 5 years down the line, 6 years down the line. So for example, Malaysia became one of the Madrid Protocol country. I think we're the 102nd in the list. But when we came one of the members, many foreign companies, a lot of brand owners then designated Malaysia because we were not part of it before. So they then went to their application and said, okay, I want to designate Malaysia now, send my application to Malaysia now through the Madrid Protocol system. Similar to that, local businesses can do that. You can look at later on when businesses is thriving in other countries to later on designate another country and protect your mark in those countries. To those who are listening, and if you're not an IP lawyer who's listening, this might be very technical. And please feel free to use the chat box, ask questions. I will definitely address them. Or drop us an email. We'll give you contact details later on. If it's confusing and you need more explanation, we'll definitely take time on a one-to-one basis to clarify your questions. All right, so every good thing might have a catch. So what's the catch in terms of Madrid Protocol applications? Interestingly, there's a central attack, and there's always a rationale behind why is there disadvantages to something, right? So let me explain a bit more on central attack shortly. So a roundup, this is central attack. There's a central attack that's quite detrimental. Goods and services of your application can be narrow. Some countries of interest may not be listed as members, and a basic application is a must. Okay, again, if I don't explain this, it might just be like passing through your mind like that. So let's go to it. Okay, number 1, basic application is a must. This means that applicants must be an entity in the country where they're making a basic application. So so easiest to explain is you cannot directly go to Madrid Protocol. Let's say you are starting a business and Malaysia is not a market and you want to file in 5 other countries at the same time through the Madrid Protocol system. You cannot do that. We need to file one application, one local trademark application in one member country. So this means you need, if it's Singapore, you're coming from Singapore, then we file the application in Singapore, we get a Singapore application. If you're in Malaysia, we do a Malaysian application. It's wherever your entity is based. And even if that is not your market, we need to file it in the country that your entity is incorporated. So let's say your company is incorporated in Malaysia, but Malaysia is not a market. You're looking at all the other ASEAN countries. Then we can use other countries that are a member of the Madrid Protocol. But the catch is that you have to have an entity registered in that country. So for you, when you have an entity registered in that country, then you can file a base application. So previously, Malaysians actually struggled. A lot of clients came to us and said, I would like to use the Madrid Protocol application, but I do not have an entity in any other countries except Malaysia. Because Malaysia was not yet part of the Madrid Protocol treaty, we could not file a Madrid Protocol application using the Malaysian entity. But fortunately, for clients who had a Vietnamese entity and a Singapore entity, uh, we could file through Vietnam and through Singapore, and we did that. So CAS has been filing many Madrid Protocol applications previously, but not through Malaysia. We help business owners through Singapore and through Vietnam. So this is important. Like, you must have a base application. That sometimes can be a disadvantage if that market is not of interest to you. Then the central attack. So what does the central attack mean? The international registration, so your world intellectual property, the application that we filed through the Madrid Protocol, and that it's called an international registration, which is a really weird term, a phrase to be used, because it does not mean that you have an international registration. It does not mean that you have trademark registration in many countries. It means that you're filed an Madrid Protocol application. That is basically what it means. So when you have an international registration, and the international registration depends on the existence of the basic application. So basically, when you file your trademark application in the Madrid Protocol system and it's sent to all those countries, and it's processed in those countries, and you have a application number that's also issued by the Madrid Protocol system. It's an international registration number. This international registration is what all the designated countries depend on. Even though it's examined in those countries, the international registration is important in the sense that this relies on your base application. So for 5 years, your international registration relies on your base application. And this means that your base application, and the example given earlier, the basic application is a must. So let's take Malaysia. You file an application in Malaysia and then file a Madrid Protocol application in 5 other countries. But your Malaysian application has not been processed to registration yet. There could be a few things that could happen. Your trademark could be objected by the Malaysian IP office, or your trademark, although accepted by the Malaysian IP office, is opposed by a competitor. Your competitor might think that their trademark is very similar to my trademark. Okay? And if they find it very similar, the first thing they'll do is try to stop that application. So there are all these hurdles from your application to become a registration. That hurdle, there's risk. Your trademark might not be registered. This risk is dangerous because of your Madrid Protocol application. That in that 5 years, if your basic application does not proceed to registration, all your designated countries, the applications in your designated countries will collapse. So that's a huge risk. And the rationale behind this is that you know how this system makes it easier to protect your brands abroad. But think of big brands. Think of brands where they are worried that people use this system to hijack their trademarks or to introduce a substantially similar trademark in an easy manner. So that's why this mechanism is there. This mechanism is there to, instead of going and stopping application in 5 countries, the brand owner can attack the main application that holds the international registration. If you attack this base application and all of this collapses, the brand owner can prevent companies from hijacking their trademark. You can pretty much have a secure system to prevent from wrongful parties misusing your trademark. That's why this exists. But also, although there's a rationale behind this, there is still a risk in terms of companies that use the system to secure registration abroad. So this is pretty much what I just explained earlier, so we don't need to go through it. Third disadvantage is countries of interest may be non-member countries. Earlier I talked about Myanmar. Myanmar is not a member country, and there's other countries also that are not a member country. Then how do you seek protection in non-member countries? you may have to go direct to that country because you can't use the Madrid Protocol system. So in that scenario, you have to strategize. Is it first to file? Is it first to use? Should I file it directly in that country now, or should I do it later? All of that, your expert consultant can advise you. Another disadvantage is restricted assignment of transfer of ownership. So trademarks cannot be transferred to a country that is not a member country if you had filed it through the Madrid Protocol system. So this is really important because if the business owner has an exit strategy, and in your business you might have an exit strategy, build it up to a certain level and then exit, liquidate the company or liquidate your assets. But if that's the case, how do you have an exit strategy if you cannot sell the trademarks? If the person purchasing the trademarks is from the entity that's purchasing your business and the trademarks is from a non-member country. So this becomes tricky because assignment cannot be done from a Madrid Protocol application to a non-member country. So that's a disadvantage. And but having said that, there are 120 countries that have signed up to the Madrid Protocol. So if you are interested to find out which countries are not members of Madrid Protocol, again, I'll give you contact details. We can send you these details. You will see that it's more countries that have subscribed to the system than haven't subscribed to the system. And another disadvantage is narrow specification of goods and or services. In the base application, that goods and services, the description of your goods and services application is what will be used when you enter the other countries in Madrid Protocol. So earlier example is if you designate to 5 countries, your description will be the description used in those 5 countries. In some countries where the base application, the IP offices in the base countries are difficult and are very, very strict in terms of the description they use, such as US and China, they can be very, very tight in terms of the description that is allowed. And because of that, you might need to narrow down your description. You can't have a wide description. So if it's clothing, for example, you can't just say it's clothing. You must actually explain what is it for. Is it pajama wear? Is it outdoor wear? Is it skirts for females? So you need to be very much specific. You can't have a wide description. And some countries are very strict on that. So if your base application is filed in a country that's strict, then your national applications that follows that, your designated countries will also have a very narrow description. That can be detrimental because you are trying to use the system to enter into other countries. And of course, you would want a wider description for your trademark application. But because of your base country, which is limiting the description, you then have limited rights abroad. So again, all of this is in strategy. All these disadvantages can be overcome. You just actually really need to strategize on how to overcome these disadvantages. But it's important for you to know in terms of when you file through the Madrid Protocol system. So that brings me towards the end of this presentation. Is Madrid Protocol the right system for you? How do you determine this? So yes, if you are seeking for trademark protection in multiple markets, I mentioned earlier, you're looking at more than two countries, or you're looking at 2 countries and maybe later on, I might venture into 3 other countries. So yes, if you're thinking big, 2 for now, and I would like later on add designations, and we're wishing to add more markets in your business expansion plans and develops, or you have limited budget and time to manage your trademarks. So before going global, these are 3 things we would like you to go away with today. Be aware of your intellectual property rights and take all the necessary actions before officially filing your trademarks overseas, and choose the best filing option based on your business expansion plans. I would love to address any questions you have. And also what we're offering today, before I address any questions, put it out there. Going abroad sometimes can be confusing in terms of which is the most cost-effective way, especially when I say, is it 2 countries or 5 countries? Another thing to consider, are you filing in ASEAN or are you filing in the Western market? It can be more expensive in the Western market, and maybe Madrid Protocol is better then. So we are giving CAS, for 1 month, we're giving free 1-hour consultation on anyone in terms of their IP strategy to see whether it ties in with your business strategy. So please take out contact details and drop us an email if you're keen for a 1 hour consultation. My contact details are here. So take down my email address and drop me an email, and we will arrange for a Zoom call to address any questions that you have and give you a solid 1 hour IP strategy advice for you. And that brings us to the end of the presentation. And now I'll address any questions that you have. Back to you,
Yes.
YY.
Hi, Miss Gita. I guess you can just go to the chat. Wait, I paste your contact details first. So this is Miss Gita contact. Okay, so I end these slides, or you need to keep these slides with you, Miss Gita.
You can end the slides, yeah.
Hello.
I mean, depending on the question,
Okay.
if anyone
So
is
I will.
saying, maybe we can see the question. Can you
Then
see
I
the
guess
slide?
I leave it up. So you can check the chat box. There's a question from Yi. So when applying under the Madrid Protocol, if one country is slow in checking the trademarks, example takes 18 months, while some are fast, takes 2 months. Does this mean that the process that takes 18 months, what happened if someone else files the same trademark in the third month directly
So
in
very
one
good.
of the countries?
So
I
very
have
good.
no problem.
Thanks, YY. So very good question. It is from the date of application, your rights begin. So if you file today, for example, and someone files the trademark in 3 months' time, your application has an earlier filing date. So you're still safe in that sense. If you're talking about someone applying for your trademark after you have applied for your trademark.
Okay, thank you.
So wait, this is what happens if someone else files the same trademark in the third month directly in one of the countries. Okay, so it is you still have a prior date. So your in Madrid Protocol applications, the priority date is the application of your base application that you then use that for your Madrid Protocol application. So you still have a prior date even though another party files directly into that designated country of yours.
Okay, so we proceed.
This is so let's go back to this question. Yeah, it's really interesting because we also talked about subsequent designations. So we talked about subsequent designations. The subsequent designations will not have that filing date of the earlier application. It will there might be a trademark that is already existing that might block a subsequent designation. So before a subsequent designation is done, what our clients do is we do a trademark search for our clients to find out whether will there be any block. Because you cannot subsequently designate and still expect your earlier application to have that priority date, and that protects you for protection in those countries that you subsequently designate. Why can
So
you? Yeah.
oh, because I'm not sure if you have already answered. So
Okay. Okay.
this
Yeah.
question is answered. Okay, so then we proceed to next question from Darren. I broadcast it. Can you see this? So if we need to have trademark in the foreign countries, we need to have a business entity registered there.
No, so your base application, very good question, Darren, but no, your base application where you're initiating the entire Madrid Protocol process, that base application, you need to have an entity in that country. You do not need to have an entity in all the countries that you're filing your trademark through the Madrid Protocol system. Even if you don't file it through the Madrid Protocol system, you do not need to have an entity in any countries. Trademark protection is given for foreign owners, regardless of the fact of whether they have an entity in that country. Hope that addresses your question, Darren.
Okay. So from Rachel, my company has a trademark about our 10 years proven teaching method. I always wondered it should be trademark or patent.
All right, so you might be looking at two intellectual property rights there. The trademark is, as earlier I was referring to, is basically what brings your customers to think of you. So is it your tagline? Is it that logo? Is it the name of your training company because you have a teaching method? So that is a trademark. Pretty much what I look at and I think of the company behind it. So you definitely will have a brand to protect as well. Uh, and proven teaching method, we will definitely have to know more about your proven teaching method. It might be nearly a business concept. And if it's a concept of the way teaching is done, it might not be protectable by any intellectual property rights. The most that we can do is actually advise you. It might be copyright that we can protect in your training materials, in your slides, in your handout. That's what we can protect. But Rachel, like if you drop us an email, we can advise you more thoroughly once you actually understand your proven teaching method, understand your teaching method. Because I might be wrong. You might have softwares integrated to it. You might be using an app. If it's quite complex and it actually is patentable, you might have a patent there. But we need to know more from you, Rachel, before I can advise you on is there a patent. But on the cursory overview of teaching methods itself, teaching methods are concepts that cannot be protected by patents. But it's a very good
Okay.
question, and keep them coming, everyone. Any other questions I can assist with, YY?
Yeah, got a lot, got a lot. Yeah, we are answering one by one. So this one is wait sorry. I broadcast this. Area or Asian countries signatories charities to Madrid Protocol.
Hi, John. Thanks for your question. Unfortunately, not all. We still have Myanmar, which is not yet a member of the Madrid Protocol system. Myanmar does not even have intellectual property laws at the moment that are enforceable in Myanmar. And apart from that, all the other 9 ASEAN countries, Brunei, Laos, Cambodia, Thailand, Vietnam, all the other 9 countries are signatories to the Madrid Protocol system.
Okay, so I guess this is there's an answer for this question also. So is China already included in Madrid Protocol too?
Yes. So China is Howard, and China was a member quite some time ago.
Okay, then this one is from Hui Yi. So is there any restriction on the business nature on a trademark? Example, during trademark application, the company is doing business A, and later after obtaining the trademark, the company changed business to B.
Yes, Hui, and very relevant question, especially now with so many businesses going online. So let's take your example, right? Let's say I used to run a restaurant, and when I run a restaurant, it's a service industry. I'm serving food and beverage. In the trademark registration or trademark protection, not just in Malaysia, in many countries, we have a needs classification system. Basically, trademarks are categorized to 45 classes of services and goods. You cannot have a trademark. Okay, I'm gonna since I'm using the example of a restaurant, I'm gonna say chicken rice shop. The chicken rice shop. I run a chicken rice shop, and it's class 43, which is a service class just for selling food and beverage. So that brand of mine will be registered under that specific class. I cannot register the chicken rice shop for everything under the sun. It is not a registration. When you say I have a registered trademark, you must always remember that what goods is it for, what services is it for. The trademark system does not allow you to have rights for everything under the sun. It's very much limited to what are you providing the public with. So back to this example, this restaurant, and this restaurant now with the shutdown or lockdown in most countries, they are now selling online. They are selling food for takeaway. There might be another class that's relevant in terms of now taking it online, might be class 35 of providing food and beverage online. So that's an example of how when you pivot your business and you start doing something else, you might have your trademark registered in one class, but you need to look at protecting it at another class as well to have protection in case there is a copycat providing services in that specific category of goods and services. So Hui Yi, I hope that explains your question. Another example would be someone who's in the fashion industry. If I'm selling clothes, the natural expansion would be for me to also sell accessories. I would like to start selling jewelry, and that's a different class from clothes. So one is 25 for clothes, class 14 is for selling accessories. So your business might diversify in terms of your offerings to the public, and that might mean that you have different protection that you need to look at. Thanks, Hui,
Okay,
for your question.
thank you. So this one is from Leonardo. Thank you for the nice presentation and thank you to Leonardo. So if a designated country in America issue a preliminary rejection, the response should be filed directly in the country of interest.
Hang on. Okay, let me look at that question, Leonardo. If a designated country in America, a designated country in America issues a preliminary rejection, the response should be filed directly in the country of entry. Okay, good question. So we're looking at a designated, yeah? You're looking at your designations, the Madrid Protocol designations. Yes, if there is an objection or provisional refusal, it is usually issued by the Intellectual Property Office of the designated country. Your response would be to even though the news about the provisional refusal will come from World Intellectual Property Office, the response must be filed at the relevant IP office of each Madrid Protocol country that you filed in, if an objection is raised. So it is filed at the IP office of the country that you've designated. This sounds like a very IP lawyer question. It's highly technical. But yes, thanks, Leonardo, for your question. I hope that
Okay.
clarifies it. And if it doesn't, please pop a message in the chat group.
Okay. There's a question from Joyce. Hold on. Yeah. Okay. So we have a trademark which was successfully registered. So question one. Recently, we found out that our trademark designed by company was a similar copy to another one. What should we do in this situation? The trademark is expiring soon. What could we do to rectify the weaknesses before we renew the trademark? Thank you. And there's a explanation. My trademark is a logo with a tagline. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Joyce. Very interesting question. Recently, we found out that our trademark designed by a company was similar to another one. Okay, so what should we do in this situation? So there is a few issues here already. So number one is very important, everyone, especially business owners, when you outsource the design of your trademark, please ensure that that design, if it's artistic in nature. Okay, let's look at the Starbucks design. Everyone recognizes the Starbucks trademark, right? The middle is a mermaid and she's got her long flowing hair. So that is very artistic in nature. Someone that designed it actually owns copyright in that design. That copyright must be transferred to the brand owner. Otherwise, the brand owner might own the trademark, but copyright resides in another party, basically the designer. And that designer might be able to use the copyright in his artwork. He might not use it as a brand, but he might be using it as copyright, as artistic work in his other designs. So it's very tricky, but it's very important to have that copyright from that design transferred back to the owner. So these business owners, please be aware, if you are outsourcing your design of your trademark work, have that done. That's first. Okay, now the second one is you find that the trademark has similar copy to another. It's a very vague question, and the reason, Joyce, I say it's vague is, remember earlier I was talking about you cannot have one trademark for all the classes of services and goods. So going back to CAS cannot have a registration for a restaurant because we don't provide food and beverage. We provide IP services. So if, let's say, there's a CAS restaurant that opens up, so can we actually stop them? It's similar, it's identical. Can we stop a restaurant from operating under our brand name? We cannot. We cannot unless CAS is famous, unless we're looking at everyone in Malaysia knows CAS. And how do I say that? Do we know KFC? Do we know McDonald's? Do we know Body Shop? That's what a famous brand is. You see it, and a large percentage of the population is aware of that brand. And only when you're aware of that brand that they have extra rights and they can put a stop to other people from entering into businesses or industries they are not even in. So we are not in the F&B, but we can't stop another person from entering the F&B with our brand. So Joyce, this question, that's why I say it's quite vague, because when you have a brand and you're saying that another party that's copying your brand, I can advise you on in terms of, is there chances of success in stopping the other party from using your brand? Only if it's in the same industry. Only if it's in the same industry, or if it's not in the same industry but you're famous. So then there might be a possibility to stop the other party from using that brand. So when you say that, when you always see competitors, or when you see another brand similar to your brand, also go down, nail down to, are they providing the same sort of goods? Are they providing the same sort of services? If it's not same sort of goods and it's not the same services, are they in a related industry? And then that means, are they going to confuse the layperson by two brands being in the related industry in the marketplace? Again, Joyce, I would love to advise you with more details. And if it's too, and I can see it can be too confidential to put it in a public forum, do drop me an email, and we can do a free 1 hour consultation to kind of give you a strategy on what can you do. Next
Okay.
one is, sorry, YY, can you put that up again? Because I think there's a second part to that question.
Oh, okay, sure. This one.
So the next part of the question is, the trademark is also expiring soon. What should we do? Should we rectify the weakness before we renew the trademark? Again, Joyce, a very good question, and you can see that there's a lot of thought going into this before you incur cost for the renewal. Renewal is for every 10 years. You should not change the trademark. I highly advise against changing a trademark, especially if you have been in the industry for many years. You built equity in the brand. You've got reputation and goodwill in your brand. So only change the brand if you find that the consumers being confused, and there is a clash with another brand in the same industry. And also, if the other party came in earlier than you. So again, we would love to advise you in more detail and more accurately, because right now there's a lot of assumptions in this advice. So Joyce, please drop us an email and I can call you to advise you. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. So from A, can taste or smell of my nasi lemak be trademark?
Why, can you put it up in
Oh,
the
sorry, sorry. This one.
or can taste or smell of my nasi lemak be trademarked? Man, you're making me hungry. Um, those who are puasaing, I'm really sorry that we're addressing this question right now. But it's a good question. Can taste and smell of my nasi lemak be trademarked? So, the taste and smell can be trademarked if it's not descriptive of your product, which then means your nasi lemak must not smell like a nasi lemak and your nasi lemak must not taste like a nasi lemak. Only then that can be trademarked. And the reason for this is that it needs to be unique. It needs to stand out. And how does a brand stand out? When it does not taste and smell like what it is representing. So that's pretty much what the answer is. It needs to not taste like what you're selling and it needs not to smell like what you're selling. So Chanel, for example, tried to register their smell for Chanel 5 as a trademark. It has a very distinct smell. But for a perfume company to register a smell, a distinctive smell, as its trademark, it was refused by the European office and the European Trademark Office. And the reason is that smell is functional. You're selling a perfume because it's meant to produce a distinctive smell. That's why people buy it. Not from the smell immediately makes you think. I mean, all perfumes function in that way. All unique smelling perfumes, when you smell the perfume, you might know it's Beautiful by Estee Lauder, or it's Michael Kors, or it's Chanel 5. But that's the function of the product. So that was not allowed. So A, taste and smell can be actually trademarked, but it has to be very unique and not representing what you sell. Thanks for a very interesting question.
So here we come DC, a follow up with Joy's question. So what is the threshold or test to determine whether one brand is big?
All right, so it's a very tricky question. So courts have taken surveys, a lot of court cases. They look at surveys to determine whether a brand is famous. And survey evidence can be destroyed in court if they're not done properly, and it's not done in a very neutral manner. And there's no one answer for this. A lot of it is do the majority in your industry know about your trademark? And majority is also a very subjective question. So there is no direct answer in it. It's a very subjective matter into what is the fame that you have in your industry. It might not be the whole of Malaysia, but it could be in your industry. And there is a test. Actually, DC, there is a test, but right now I can't remember what is the test. I think it's a test that came out by court, and then we can definitely send it to you because it came from cases that were trying to establish that they were famous. So DC, if you could drop in your email address in the chat box, we can definitely get back to you.
Okay, so that's the end from the for the question in the chat box because no one is typing it out. Oh yes, there is one from Patrine. So if you commission an artist to design a avatar for you, which you then use in business, do you need to ask for copyright?
Okay, so an avatar is uh, tricky because do you mean like you're planning to use an image or a mascot or a character in your business? Is that what you mean by avatar? And if yes, if you are planning to have a character and that's going to represent you in your website, in your social media, you're planning to give that avatar a name, a personality, then yes, because you're creating a brand personality, it's kind of like in the most strangest, because you wouldn't call that McDonald's guy avatar. So, but that would be what a lot of us can relate to when I use an example that's famous, Ronald McDonald. So the fact that, or even Hello Kitty. So these are people that are very strong characters. If you're planning to use that in your business, then yes, you're looking at what aspects are you going to be how are you going to use the avatar? Will you be selling merchandise? Will you be just using it as a 2D or 3D image on your website? If just a 2D and 3D image on your website, you're looking at protecting it as a brand. And yes, you must have that creative design behind the avatar transferred to you because there is copyright in that. And then it goes to, are you planning to merchandise this avatar? Are you planning to sell products, mini products with the avatar? Then you might be looking at a 3D protection, an industrial design protection for that avatar because you're merchandising it. And you're looking at, of course, looking at then other countries. What countries are you selling your services and businesses to, and protecting it there as well. So I hope that addresses your question, Patrine. But the moment you commission any artist, always have the rights transferred to you because with copyright, the rule of thumb is the right resides with the person that creates that artistic work.
Okay.
And why is there any other questions?
Yes, I guess we will answer the one last question because it's almost 12:30 now, and I guess you are really tired also.
No, it's okay.
so
I'm
this
okay.
so this is from Durga. By adapting the Madrid Protocol now, can the business owner themselves file for trademark filing, or they still need assistance of IP consultant or IP attorney to do it?
Uh, good question. They can actually file it themselves. I think it can be done on their own if they have a base application, but it's very tricky, the process, because then they also have to manage deadlines. When you register in or designate subsequent countries, you need to be careful of the deadlines and to monitor deadlines when they issue provisional refusals. That's where a lot of times deadlines are missed. And earlier, the description of goods, when you're filing a Madrid Protocol application, you want to be able to make sure your description of goods and services are correct because you're taking something to many countries and taking your brand to many countries. So make sure your brand is very strong, and most likely will defeat any refusals in other countries, and your description of goods and services are accurate. That's very, very important. And you're filing in the correct classes for services or goods. So there are things that goes behind just filing an application that you need to ensure is correct because you might be replicating what is wrong in many countries. So what is meant to be a cost-saving mechanism becomes an extremely costly procedure to try to rectify what you did wrong. So just be very careful.
Okay.
Right. So
So
thank
So that's the end for our webinar. Be happy, learn online. Bye bye.